YNA is a podcast that focuses on mental health and other aspects relating to what goes on inside of a person's head. We are by no means professionals in this field and only aim to make these conversations about mental health easier for the listener. Nothing we say or talk about is professional advice unless explicitly mentioned. If you seek professional advice or experience symptoms of an actual mental disorder, please contact a professional or visit your closest center for behavioral health. You are not alone.
What's up, guys? Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you're looking for more of our content and merch information, be sure to check us out at ynamentalhealth.org. Keep an eye out for our skits and upcoming episode information. Feel free to reach out to us on IG. Our DMs are always open. And please remember, you're not alone.
Hello. Welcome back to YNA Mental Health. My name is Sina Balouch. I'm the host of YNA Mental Health. Today, I'm here with Layla Nelson. She's a licensed clinical professional counselor with over 10 years of experience. Layla has dealt with postpartum herself and is here to talk about what is the myths, the understanding, and give us a basic information on what postpartum depression is and what it feels like to go through postpartum. Layla, it's a pleasure to have you here on the podcast. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Sina.
Yeah, of course. So just give us a basic understanding. What is postpartum depression?
It's a depressive episode during the pregnancy and within a year after giving birth.
Now, when it comes to postpartum depression, it seems like a lot of people just assume it's baby blues. Now, what is the difference between baby blues and postpartum?
So baby blues usually start a few days after giving birth and it lasts about a week or two, whereas postpartum depression is more intense, it's longer, and it impairs functioning and it needs treatment. Whereas baby blues, they go away within themselves. Like you don't need to do anything about it.
Okay, so when it comes to baby blues, that's such a funny name to put on something like that compared to postpartum depression, right? And so a lot of what postpartum depression people deal with is the hormonal imbalance, right? When people are pregnant and they're going through a pregnancy, it seems like what they're going through is a lot of hormones, a lot of chemical imbalances, and so I think the basic question is the hormone imbalance after having a child causing PPD, or is it just the symptoms of depression and further mental illnesses that are causing issues?
I mean, it's definitely a big part of it because your hormones are changing, so then that impacts your mood. But also there are many other factors that could impact it, like your self-care, how much support you have, what is going on around you, the stressors, that all can impact.
With the symptoms of depression, it seems like a lot of environmental factors play such a huge role in what you deal with, right? Like job loss, relationship breakup, family issues can cause depression. And these smaller things can just make themselves into a larger issue as a mental illness continues. And with mental illnesses, can they play hand in hand with PPD? So if I'm somebody who struggles with anxiety or OCD, can it play hand in hand with my PPD?
For sure. Postpartum depression will intensify whatever else you're struggling with. So it's important that you already have treatment. You talk to your OBGYN, you talk to your primary, and they know that you already have a history of mental illness. And they are prepared and have a plan for you in case the symptoms increase in any way.
You know what's really funny? I've heard a lot about postpartum depression, but I never knew that there was also postpartum anxiety. Now, when it comes to postpartum anxiety, is it the same as postpartum depression? Can they happen at the same time? Or is it something that is different? And it can be like you can have postpartum anxiety, but not have postpartum depression.
Yeah, they definitely play hand in hand. And some people experience more postpartum anxiety than postpartum depression. So postpartum depression is more the sadness, the crying, feeling depressed, having a hard time with sleep, eating. They also feel very fatigued. Now, fatigue is pretty common after giving birth. So that's a symptom that usually does not get recognized. But with this fatigue, no matter how much you rest, you're still feeling so tired and out of energy. Whereas with anxiety is more excessive worrying, having intrusive thoughts, having a hard time leaving the baby, having irritability, anger, agitation. Something else that goes with depressive symptoms are suicidal thoughts, self-harm thoughts. So it's really important to know your symptoms and what is going on. Just being aware.
You know what's scary is a lot of intrusive thoughts, right? A lot of people who struggle with postpartum depression talk about the intrusive thoughts that cause such a major problem with their thinking process. When it comes to intrusive thoughts, how can I prepare for something like this? You know, it seems like a lot of people try to recognize in themselves and they know of postpartum depression nowadays with all the information that's being spread on the internet. Is it difficult and to recognize postpartum depression and admit it to yourself that you're struggling with something like this?
For sure. I think sometimes women feel guilty or feel judged if they are not happy. There's this stigma of, oh, you just give birth and you're having a baby, you should be happy, there should be so much joy in your life. Whereas a woman might not feel that way. So then they have a hard time speaking up and talking about it because they might feel like they're a bad mother. And that is not the case at all. Also with intrusive thoughts, sometimes women have thoughts of harming their baby. That does not mean at all that they want to harm their baby. It's just a thought that comes more from anxiety and fear of something happening to their baby. So they don't talk about it.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the scariest things, right? When we don't talk about our feelings. And this is where mental health plays such an important factor. When we do start the conversation and we do talk to people about these issues, it seems like we're taking a weight off of our shoulders. So we just want to remind the listener that if you are struggling with something like this, it's really important that you talk about it. I think that one of the biggest things that I always love to say on the podcast is your thoughts do not define who you are, right? If you do have thoughts of hurting your child, that doesn't mean that you're going to hurt your child, you know, and that's important for people to understand that, again, your thoughts do not make who you are. Now, when you start experiencing PPD, what symptoms did you realize now going through your own struggle?
I felt isolated. I felt lonely. I felt sad. I had a lot of anxiety leaving my baby at all, to take a shower or to get out of the house, go to work. That was really hard. When you're home with the baby often, you're just talking to a baby that will not talk back to you and is only taking you know. And then not having people around you usually because they're working or they have their own stuff going on can feel really isolating. So it's really important that you talk to your partner about it or your support system, just letting them know how you feel so they can show up for you.
And what I've learned, I was listening to a podcast that was talking about PPD and they were explaining how important it is for your partner to show up for you. And what I was researching is when a single mom who is dealing without a partner, how do I, if I'm a listener who is a single mom and doesn't have the support from a partner, how do I get the support that I need? Do I look towards my family? Do I look towards my friends? How do I even stand up and save myself in difficult moments like that?
Well, first of all, having a partner and going through all of this was super hard. So I can't imagine going through all of this as a single parent. That is extremely hard. It's important to have your family, if that is your support system, and sometimes it is and sometimes not. It could be friends. If you do not have a family or friends around you or close to you, then there are support groups out there. There are a lot of them out there. They're actually at the hospital, they can give you information about it that you could attend. You also can see your therapist and your psychiatrist to help you go through, it.
Yeah, and now we go back to if you do have a spouse, how do I start the conversation with them? What if I'm a spouse who doesn't understand mental health or doesn't never have dealt with a mental illness? There's a lot of people out there who don't know even how to start the conversation. But if I want to bring it up to my partner, and we do say that in mental health that we need to be able to have these conversations where we can be open with the people that we love. How do we talk to our spouse? How do we talk about something like PPD?
Make sure to come with curiosity and no judgment and being validating to them. Because remembering that they have been home alone with the baby all day long, and they sometimes haven't had any conversation with adults. So when you get home, they're excited to see you and want to talk to you. So being open to that and knowing that there needs to be realistic expectations. Sometimes there's an expectation of my partner has been home all day, so then they can take care of all the household tasks. And that is a lot of pressure for a woman. Or another expectation is sex, whereas for some women, it takes some time for their body to heal, or they have low sex drive, which also depression impacts as well. So just being really understanding and open and helping them to plan self-care and helping them seek their support system, planning date nights, that helps women get out of the house too.
I was reading a lot of stories about women who have struggled with PPD and how they experienced it. And a lot of people said how their spouse or partner just helped them so much. They would do things for them. They would be thoughtful. They would figure out ways to get her out of the house just to get them away and allow them to relive life. You know, I think that's what's crazy to think about is like we bring life into this planet, but then we lose connection with our own life. If you are somebody who is struggling with trying to connect back to your life, was there anything that you did or anything that you know of that can help you kind of find that spark or find that enjoyment in life again?
Hobbies were really important. I also reached out to my friends, and that was helpful. I had a friend that would drop off food once a week, and that was amazing. Just knowing that someone is dropping off the food and you don't have to worry about it. My partner was super helpful, and he was understanding and would be open to communication and would help me just have my time to take a nap or to take a shower, or just get out of the house, go shopping, go to wherever you want to go. It's just for an hour or two. It's just the environment change sometimes really helps too.
Yeah, and I think that brings a lot of dopamine and help into the person's life, right? With someone who's dealing with chemical imbalances, it's really important that we find ways to reconnect with our life because that makes us feel like we're human again. And I think that's the scariest part is when we lose ourselves, especially into a child that we know that is going to take time to build, especially with someone who, if you don't have a supportive partner, you know, I think that could be really hard as well, just trying to get yourself out of the house and trying to get yourself to do things that you really love to do. So I want to remind people that are listening, like, you need to get out of your own comfort zone and find ways to fall in love with life again, even though it could be terrifying, even though you have to leave a baby alone or with somebody or with the care that you have to provide. I know that it can be really hard, but as somebody who struggled with PPD, once you get help, it seems like that's the line that kind of pushes you over the boundary of feeling better. Is there a time frame where you start feeling better with your PPD, or is it just, it depends on the person, what they're doing with treatment and how they're taking care of themselves? Do you know if there is a timeline or when you would start feeling it or when you should start looking out for feelings of postpartum depression?
I think within that year, you would see the warning signs, like the ones that I mentioned, usually with the treatment. And that can be therapy, that can be medication, or it could be both. We usually recommend both of them. Medication will help with the hormonal imbalance, and therapy will help with the other parts. The symptoms should decrease within a few months. I empathize. I really, really empathize. It is hard to leave the child, and it is really hard to think about eating or taking care of yourself, but that is so, so important. I tell my new mom clients, make sure you set aside time to eat because you have to take care of yourself too. Make sure you do take a shower because that is so important. It just changed your mood a little bit. Because I have had moms that weren't able to take a shower for a week, or they were just eating at night because the whole day was just so focused on the baby eating. So just making sure that you do self-care as much as you can, even if it's in the small ways.
Yeah, and we can kind of go and dive into the world of talk therapy and how it helps people with postpartum depression. I know, like, of course, going and seeing a therapist can really help you guide what you're dealing with. But how do you even bring it up to your therapist if this isn't something you've ever dealt with before, right? Like if you've never dealt with depression or anxiety or have no idea what these symptoms even look like, is it like a thought process that really begins the conversation with your therapist? Like, I'm feeling depressed, or I'm feeling long periods of sadness or isolation or loneliness. Because I know it can be scary to open up, especially to. It's really difficult to open up, especially if you've never been able to open up in general. How do you start that conversation with your therapist?
I think you just can tell your therapist about you struggling. Just like, I'm having a really hard time. I don't feel happy. I don't feel the pleasure that I used to feel. I feel lonely. I feel isolated. Just bringing out things that are really going on with you and being honest about it can really open the conversation. And then the therapist can help you create a plan.
What would a plan like that look like? Have you ever given a client a plan, or what could a plan even how could it even look like?
So usually with my mom clients that are pregnant during pregnancy, we create a plan, and that can be, what are the warning signs to look out for? What are the self-cares you have to make sure you do? Make a list. What do you need from your partner? And making sure you communicate that with them. Who are your support system? Making sure you communicate with them. What do you need from them? Do you need meals to be dropped off? Do you need them to help you to create meals and freeze them so that later you could use them? It's just asking for help is okay and it's important. And I think that also helps your support system know what to do, because sometimes our support system get lost too and they don't know how to help. And this is a way for them to know how to really show up for you.
Yeah, and it can be really confusing for someone who has never been there, for someone who has struggled through a pregnancy or has gone through postpartum depression, or first-time parents. I think that could be really confusing for someone who doesn't understand what's going on. So communication always is the most important factor when it comes to talking to somebody who's struggling with some kind of disorder or some kind of mental illness or anything that they're dealing with. I think we always say in relationships, right, there's communication, communication, communication. It's the core understanding of how we can continue to basically tell people what's going on inside of us. Now, when we go back to medication, I know that you're not a psychiatrist. And of course, if anybody is dealing with medication for mental illness, you always want to make sure you're talking to the right person. But I know the stigma behind and every fear of every woman is, can I take antidepressants when I'm breastfeeding?
Yes, you can. You need to talk to your doctor, and primary doctors can prescribe this medication to you, or the psychiatrist can prescribe antidepressant to you. There are antidepressants out there that are safe for you to take during pregnancy and during breastfeeding. And if the doctor thinks there are any risk or they need to increase your medication, they'll make sure to tell you that that's what's going on. And then you can make the decision on what you want to do. But you can definitely take the medication, at least for even within that year. And then if you decide to go off of it, or you're feeling better and you don't think you don't need it, then you can have that conversation with them again.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, they're really scared of hurting the baby. And I think that's a basic understanding of what postpartum really starts with, is I don't want to hurt my child in any way, especially if I'm a new parent who just doesn't understand what's going on. So I don't understand how scary that can be, right? So, and if you're not receiving the support, or if you're single parent and you're just trying to figure all of this out, it can be a whole whirlwind of confusion. So some treatments that have been said to work for depression is electroconvulsive therapy. It sounds intense. What do you think of ECT, and is it worth trying?
It can help. It is super important that you talk to the specialist and you talk to your doctors, you talk to your therapist, and gain the information before deciding to go that route. It is used more for psychosis and more severe depression. It can be helpful for PPD, but you need to gain the information first and then decide for yourself if that's the route you want to go.
Yeah, and I think that's with everything that comes up. And I think first-time moms will always dive deep into the research, right? They want to make sure that everything is okay with what they're doing because, of course, the baby comes first, and that is what their priority is, and they don't want to hurt them. So if you are listening to this episode, I want to remind you that you're taking a good step forward to really putting yourself first, putting your child first, and putting your spouse first because you're putting your mental health as a priority. Beyond medication, what lifestyle changes can help me manage my symptoms?
That can be setting a routine. It could be making sure you prioritize your sleep so you have block time sleep. It could be making sure you schedule going out with a friend once a week, once a month, whatever that is. Scheduling date nights, making sure you figure out how you could get what you need and put it in the plan instead of setting it aside, because usually new moms saying what baby needs is number one and I have to do everything I can and nothing else matters. And that is true. What baby needs, it's extremely important, and your needs are important as a caretaker for that little one.
And going back to the intrusive thoughts, right? When I was listening to the podcast episode, this woman was talking about how scary these intrusive thoughts and how they can really make you feel worried about your life. She was talking about a story about she was walking past a woman, and the only thing that she could remember and the only thing that she could think of is that this woman was going to hurt her, that she was going to stab her. So she started to prepare herself to get hurt, and so in those times, how do you stop the intrusive thoughts? Do you have any tips? Do you have any techniques or coping skills?
One is making sure that you're not judging yourself and knowing that we all have thoughts. We all have many thoughts, and some of them are super ridiculous. And knowing that it's just a thought. It will be like a cloud that will pass away, and then I will have another thought. You could look at it as just like, that's a stupid, silly thought, or that's a ridiculous thought, and then letting it be, let it pass. If you look at it as, oh my God, how dare I have that thought? How could I have that thought? And judge yourself. That thought multiplies a million. And now you're going deep and deep and deep in it, and it will be really hard to get out of it. Brene Brown talks about that she had many times of watching over her baby thinking, oh my God, what if? What if something bad's happened to my baby? What if my baby doesn't wake up? And that is so scary. But also understanding that most moms go through that. I wish we would talk about it more and make it normalize it more. But knowing that it doesn't mean that that's who you are or that's what you're going to do. If I have a thought of setting, I don't know, a couch on fire, does not mean I'm going to go do it. It's just a thought. What matters is actions and behaviors.
And it seems like with the answer to that comes self-compassion, right? When we judge ourselves, when we are our worst critic, when we are the judge that brings us down, self-compassion plays such an important role. And I always try to preach that on this podcast is, how do you talk to yourself in difficult moments? How do you pick yourself up when you're hurting yourself? You know, I've gone into the world tunnel of hurting myself, bringing myself down, and it does nothing for you, right? Like, self-compassion is so important in how we speak to ourselves. You need to be able to speak to yourself with kindness. And speak to yourself like you would a friend, right? Like, that's so important. So it's a reminder that I always say to myself, like, how would my best friend talk to me right now? How would they pick me up? How would they find a way to cheer me up? And would they say this to me? No, they wouldn't. It's just, your thoughts are what your thoughts are. But again, that isn't who you are. And of course, the question that everybody has, how long will it take for me to get better? You said that a year is a good amount of time, but what happens if my symptoms continue?
It is normal for them to continue because that depends on your prior history of mental illness. That also depends on what's in our household, what is going on in your life. So if you gave birth and you're coping with that, and then you have family issues, like someone is sick or there's a loss of job or other stuff going on, yeah, might take longer than a year. And that's where seeing a therapist is so important, because they can walk you through it, and medication can take the edge off of it. So you're not going deeper and deeper into those symptoms and depression and anxiety, because then it gets harder and harder to get out.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it can be, and I want to remind people that you don't need to be on a timeline, right? You don't need to think that in a year I will get better. Put your focus on how do I get better, not about when do I get better. I think that's the most important part for a mindset shift, right? We have to focus on how can I show up for myself? Let's forget about the time frame. I just need to be here for myself. And this is my final question before we let you go. I'm a single mom, or I'm a mom in general who's just struggling in life. As somebody who is a mom, what would you say to me? And how do you have any tips or techniques to help me feel better?
Please reach out to your mom friends. Please reach out, go to a support group for moms. Please see a therapist. I ask all women and moms, let's be more compassionate towards each other and let's not have the judgment. We all will have different parenting styles, and that's okay. But let's show up for each other and make this a normalized thing that we have struggles. Within that year, I used to think that, after a few months, my symptoms will go away because my kid is growing up and everything will be okay. But that's not true, because the phase of the baby that goes through is different. Now it's changing. Now, after a year, it's something else. They're growing up and it's something else that's coming up. So for mom to just be in a group and being for each other and support each other, make a big difference. And it's so important.
Yeah, and I love that. And I also think you shouldn't feel like feedback is a problem, right? Being able to open up and talk about what you're going through is just showing that you care about that person. And that's really important.
Yeah, because sometimes I think we give our opinion like, well, no, you shouldn't be using formula. You need to breastfeed. You need to, try harder, or you need to be doing this. Whereas maybe that's not really what the mom needs. Maybe what mom needs is just validation. And for the friend to say, hey, I will come and watch the baby while you take a nap.
Yeah, and validation and support are extremely important, especially in these difficult times when you do have a child. Showing up for your friend, being there for them when they're going through whatever they're going through, especially when it comes to having a child, is really important. So, Layla, we just want to thank you again for coming on to the podcast and sharing your expertise in this information and helping our listeners just get a better understanding what postpartum depression is. And we just want to remind the listener always, please, please, please remember, you are not alone, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Bye.